My next guest has warned that American democracy is under attack from within. Fiona Hill previously served as the top Russia expert to former President Trump, and she became a key witness during the first impeachment trial, denouncing Trump's fictional and false narrative that it was Ukraine, not Russia, that interfered in the 2016 election. And she's now out with a new memoir about her experiences before and after. It's called There Is Nothing for You Here, Finding Opportunity in the 21st Century. And Fiona Hill, thank you so much for joining us. Great to see you. I want to talk about the book in a moment, but first I have to get your reaction to the former president campaigning in Iowa. We just saw some signs behind Joe Johns a few moments ago that say, "Save America." I can't think of anything more Orwellian than that. And at the same time, he's telling allies like Steve Bannon, don't testify to the Select Committee for studying what happened on January 6th. Your reaction to all of that?
Well, my reaction to all of that is obviously that we're in a very serious situation right now. And you mentioned George Orwell, and of course, 1984, George Orwell's very famous book was all about a whole world in which lies were the coin of the realm. That lies were the thing that everything was built upon, and telling the truth was something of a revolutionary act. And this is where we are right now. President Trump, former President Trump. He still says he's President Trump, is going to go out to Iowa and basically spew a whole load of lies about what happened in the 2020 election, what happened on January 6th, and about his own investigations, as he's putting it, into the election and election counts all the way across the United States. So we're already in that Orwellian territory. President Trump is in many respects a character right out of one of Orwell's books.
Let's dive into your book and your experiences with Trump. I suppose there are some more Orwellian themes that you write about. One thing that you write about is that he wanted a nasty list, a quote, nasty list of world leaders. I thought I had heard it all from Donald Trump, but there's always more, of course. And he wanted a list of anybody who said anything negative about him, and he would actually seek payback. And you say, quote, we can put this up on screen, "At times like this, I felt like Alice in Wonderland, watching the Queen of Hearts constantly calling off with his head or off with her head whenever someone displeased her." What exactly was going on behind the scenes? Did you ever witness any officials or world leaders try to stand up to his madness?
Well, world leaders did, but of course, they would also get themselves in the crosshairs. We all know that he kept on running Twitter feuds with key individuals. Very famously, the mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, who had basically stood up against President Trump's decision to ban Muslims at one point, from traveling to the United States. Sadiq Khan had then said, well, you're not welcome to come to London. He'd gone right onto the nasty list. Anyone who at any point had said anything about President Trump while he was campaigning during the presidential primaries, or at any point in the campaign or any point afterwards, would immediately find themselves on that list. He also very famously, for example, trashed Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister of Canada, after it was reported that he'd said something that Trump took to be nasty after one of the G7 meetings. I mean, there were many examples of this. And for someone working within the White House or the National Security Council, and also the State Department and US embassies, there was an instruction after a point to basically keep a catalogue of the things that people had said, to make sure that any of these individuals from foreign countries who might be high up in their political hierarchies would not be invited to any kind of meetings with the president at any point during official gatherings. I mean, in many respects, this was fairly childish, as one might notice right away.
Absolutely. And you became a household name, as you know, after you testified at Trump's first impeachment trial. But what people might not know is what you went through right after that. You got death threats. You were even advised to seal up the mail slot on your door. Tell us what was going on.
Well, look, this is very typical of when anybody speaks out. I mean, just recently, President Trump issued a statement against me after, no doubt, hearing that I've been out and about in this past week, talking to you and to other colleagues in the media about, some of the things that I witnessed. He's attacked, for example, Stephanie Grisham, his former press secretary, who has also made a number of comments about things that she witnessed while she was in the in the administration, everybody who criticizes him in some way gets some opprobrium directly from him and then from people who are supporting him out on the internet. And all of these death threats and these derogatory comments, these threats of violence were mostly out on the internet. But of course, we've all seen how once people get into the crosshairs, we can, look no further than people like Dr. Anthony Fauci speaking out about the importance of getting to a grip with a pandemic and finding white paper, a white powder sent in a paper envelope to his office, for example, and having to be doused down by a hazmat crew. Or, opposition figures, purported opposition figures to President Trump getting pipe bombs sent to them in the mail, for example, after his attacks on them. He has, crossed over a threshold where, and of course January 6th is the classic example of this, where many of his supporters think that they have to take drastic action and even resort to violence against people who speak out.
And you also talk about the sexism you faced in the administration. You write, quote, in the Trump White House, Ivanka Trump and Fox News set the dress code for women. It was readily apparent that for Trump and those around him, it was all about the look, the image, not what you were, or not who you were or what you did. Fiona, I remember that myself, seeing that firsthand covering the White House. I mean, that was very apparent. So I do find it interesting that you picked up on that and wrote about it. But you were also given a very nasty nickname. What happened?
Well, I didn't learn about this until later from a member of the press who was doing some interviews with me and basically an article about my time in the White House, who had gone and interviewed many of the men who I had worked with and discovered that I'd been known as the Russia bitch. Were kind of a certain backhand compliment, I suppose, but also just underscoring the fact that most women were not really paid attention to. And in the recent statement that the president issued about me, for example, he claimed to not know me at all and never have noticed me, just underscoring again that, so many women
you had conversations with the president.
Very close.
But I remember you had conversations.
I was in the room,
multiple
I was
occasions.
in the room with him. That's right.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's quite typical. I mean, it just underscores the misogyny that if you're a woman or a certain kind of woman that's not in the immediate entourage, then you're pretty much nothing. You're kind of meaningless, a non-player in his world, as one of the other officials actually described it.
Well, Fiona, you and I did not have many interactions during the Trump years at the White House, but I know from talking to some of your colleagues during the course of that administration, there are so many people in the administration who had a lot of respect for you, people inside and outside the administration. So you are the Russia expert in all of this, who was brave enough to make it through that administration, and you did it in flying colors. Thanks for your work and for speaking out, and we appreciate your time this afternoon. Again, Fiona Hill, thanks so much. We should point out one more time, she's also the author of the new book, There Is Nothing for You Here. Fiona Hill, thanks so much. We appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Jim.